Drones have become a common sight in our world, from being used to take photos and record videos, deliver packages, even in warfare. In the future, their use will be even more widespread. But what happens when they become too invasive? Well, in Surrogates, people live the majority of their lives through hyper-realistic, human-style drones. They go to work, meet their friends, all through this new technology. But are the effects on mankind too dangerous? And how would it alter the course of our species? So where did the drones known as surrogates come from? Well, it all started with a man named Lionel Carter, who was not only a pioneer in drone and robotics development, but also paralysed. And his initial idea for the surrogates was to allow those who were disabled in a physical way the ability to walk, run, jump, and even feel. An admirable mission, and it wasn't until the company he used to own, Virtual Self Industries, VSI, rolled out the surrogates to the general public that mass overuse occurred. People began to live their entire lives through these surrogates, and it was a perversion of their original use. Lionel saw the damage this would do to humanity and tried to put a stop to it. But VSI, which had become one of the wealthiest companies on earth thanks to the surrogates, would allow no such thing. And Lionel was removed as head of the company by the board of directors. VSI was putting profits before what was good for mankind. Kind of expected from a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and to Lionel's credit, he did try to stop the abuse of the surrogates. But by this stage, well, it was too far gone, and that's where the movie kind of begins. So surrogates are highly advanced humanoid robots that act as remote-controlled avatars or drones. They're designed for human beings, and to control one you must have a neural link to a human operator, who then controls it from the safety of their home using a neural interface chair. Now surrogates are linked to one specific operator, though you can relink a surrogate to someone else, as we saw with Lionel's son as he was able to use his surrogates, though it would require special permission from VSI or a deep understanding of the surrogate's technical and security specifications, and surrogates can be jammed and hijacked, so there is always a risk of that. Now these machines have far superior physical capabilities compared to even the fittest human being, able to run faster, jump higher, and even take large amounts of damage and stay operational. They are superior to humans physically in every single way, and one major advantage of using a surrogate is there is zero risk of death if they're damaged. Obviously, we're discounting the special weapon from the movie. That obviously doesn't apply when we're talking about surrogates in general, because that was a plot point. One of the main selling points of surrogates is the safety factor, with Tom Greer, played by Bruce Willis, and his wife actually having lost a son and mentioning this was before kids had access to surrogates. No longer is there a risk of death by car crash or accident at work. A whole slew of potential threats are mitigated from the use of surrogates. Even random fights and assaults have dropped, as almost everyone is using these except the so-called dregs, who are against surrogates and live on private reservations where surrogates are banned from entering. And even though society looks down on these folks, they're the wisest of us all, staying true to what it means to be human, in my opinion. Now, surrogates may have lowered the fatality rate worldwide, but they have reduced the amount of people experiencing and interacting with each other in person. Everything is just done through this artificial machine lens. No one goes out to meet friends or goes out for a run. It's all through their surrogates. It's such a weird concept, yet I could see this happening in our world today. People trading experience for absolute safety. A truly foolish trade, I might add. Another reason I think there would be widespread use of surrogates is you can look however you want. Let's say you're an average guy, 5'9", decent shape and moderately fit. Well, your surrogate could be 6'8", ripped, handsome Chad, the likes the world has never seen. Maybe an average looking woman who is perfectly fine decides her surrogate is going to be a supermodel beauty, with every single inch of her absolutely perfect. This is what surrogates give people, not just safety, but they can be anyone they want without as much effort. No need to go to the gym or keep your hair looking nice, just get your surrogate dolled up. And yes, this would cost money, but it's a lot easier to earn money than it is to make yourself perfect, because that's impossible. Well, surrogates change this. And in a world where people are obsessed with being perfect, chucking filters on every photo they take, and trying to always show themselves in the best light possible, I think surrogates would make this even worse. It would be a society where everyone who uses a surrogate seems perfect in terms of looks and health, but actually, you don't know who the users are. A different sex, fat or thin, black or white, nobody would actually know who you are in real life. You're just meeting a falsehood, an imitation of a human, and it would make building friendships and relationships such an odd thing. Never really knowing who's behind the surrogate until you meet them in person, and unfortunately, As online dating has shown us, if people aren't honest about who they are, it tends to end in tears. And people will bend the truth if they want to meet or get with someone. Not always in a malicious way, but lies never bring a good result. They just complicate life further. And there would be another level to the beauty of surrogates, with the wealthy having one's gold plated, maybe jewels encrusted in the kind of surrogate skin. No longer is it a chain or clothes that are a big flex, it's your surrogate. And it's going to be, damn pricey. I actually now miss the days where a Rolex would be something that impressed someone. Now it's going to be a gold-plated 6'8" Chad. Now I will counter these negatives with a positive. The fact is, surrogates will lead to people falling for people's personalities. As if you have the perfect body, it doesn't really matter. You're still you in your actions and the way you act and present yourself. So we could see more mingling of different groups, like race and religion would be far less of a barrier for people to actually hang out. For instance, the 7-foot tall Chinese guy might actually be a 4'8" black midget from the Congo. Who knows? But the positives are, general interactions with people will be based off their personality, not now, for the looks. And before people start saying, oh, you judge people based off your looks, every single human being literally does. It's engraved in our genetics, our biology. It's a natural thing. People based off what they see. So surrogates might change that a bit, might mean people are kind of like, oh, I don't really care what you look like, I'm going to judge you off your personality. But then there's also the other factor, people are going to judge you off how high status your surrogate is. Do you have a basic surrogate or do you have a very wealthy, kind of expensive looking surrogate? So there's also that as well. It kind of gets pretty complicated quickly. Something that would also become a nightmare would be infiltration and spying, as you can make an exact copy of other surrogates, so countries, militaries, businesses would have to implement some kind of neurobiological security, otherwise there would be countless thefts and infiltrations in all levels of society, and it would lead to chaos. I could see sensitive job roles requiring people to turn up in the flesh to actually do that job to reduce the chance of infiltration. So yeah, surrogacy is, or the surrogates should I say, the drones, are like a CIA fever dream. They'd love it. Spy agencies would love it. The average person, probably not so much. Now this leads me on to the military, who would make use of the surrogates a lot, especially on the front lines. Now obviously, once we get controlled drones of this nature, designing them as humans wouldn't make sense. You could have a cheetah with a minigun turret design drone if you wanted. But for the film, they still use human-based designs, so we'll stick with that. Though this leads to a very effective fighting force where losses cost money but not lives. Every time a soldier falls on the battlefield, they just jump into another surrogate and go straight back into combat. So with a strong enough manufacturing and logistics chain, you truly could have an unlimited army. An endless fighting force that never truly dies. They just get more experience. Every surrogate lost is another lesson learned, and that soldier comes back a minute later, and over time the military would be overflowing with combat veterans who never had to face a single round in person. And these surrogates mean your soldiers are superhuman. Faster, stronger, harder to destroy than any human, and with no fears, there's no chance of death. So if the surrogate force is fighting a human force, well, it would be a slaughter, and the only way to fight a surrogate army effectively would be with one of your own, and in that case it would boil down to who can keep the waves of surrogates and other machines such as tanks, helicopters and jets flowing. Warfare would either be like Supreme Commander, with massive drone armies clashing endlessly until one buckles under the sheer onslaught of the other and runs out of resources, or more akin to something like Terminator's Future War, where humans struggle against a superior machine force that hunts them day and night. To put it bluntly, warfare would be turned on its head, and it would be horrendous if you're a human against a surrogate force. That's all I'm saying. Like, I wouldn't mind being a surrogate fighting another force, but yeah, stuff fighting surrogates, they look pretty damn tough. Entry into the military could potentially change a lot, as fitness wouldn't be as important as it once was. Though I would hope standards stayed high, the fact is, surrogates don't need the fittest person, but the one who can control the surrogate the best. Maybe a 30-stone fat dude is a badass in his surrogate, like a robot Rambo, so stuff it, he's in the military now, and he's in the spearhead of Operation Jellystorm, slaying bad guys by the ton, whilst laying at home with Pop-Tart crumbs still on his face. You glorious fat son of a bean, you just brought freedom to the Middle East while having a BMI of holy crap, you should be dead. A true hero. A true hero. People's health would obviously be a very strange subject, with surrogates being widespread. As the majority of users spend 90% of their time in their surrogates, basic things like washing, brushing your teeth and even eating and drinking enough water to keep the body going would likely get neglected. A bit like people who get addicted to video games who literally have to have their family come to feed them and drag them away to sleep. A large portion of the population might not leave their house at all, They would never see the sun, and not only is that bad for your body, but also your mind. I think people would feel free in their surrogates, but trapped in their own bodies. If you think people were bad with the use of mobile phones, myself included, well, surrogates would make this look light. I think humanity could cease to exist, as no one meets to form true bonds or even have children. Everything would be getting into your surrogate to feel the world through it. At first it's fun, cool, amazing. After a while it's a bit of a novelty, but still, it's getting more comfortable. Then in the long run, it's your own prison, of the mind and body. Feel to travel the world in this prison, but never truly able to get out. It actually worries me thinking about it. Obviously, large amounts of time spent laying down connected to the surrogate would echo the experiences of people who are bedbound. So things like bed sores, skin rashes, and all manner of unpleasant ailments would become more common than ever before. I think skincare companies would skyrocket in value, an odd yet profitable side effect of surrogates. And I imagine pharmaceutical companies would cash in on vitamin and mineral packages for those who use surrogates for a large amount of time. I can hear it now. Your surrogate's body may be perfect, but how do you keep yourself in shape? Well, thanks to modern science and our combination of a monthly injection and daily medication of gelliroxin, this will keep you healthy so you can enjoy the surrogate life to the max. Sign up now for a year and get that first injection free. Terms and conditions apply. Side effects include headaches, nausea, vomiting, death, dizziness, premature ejaculation, dysentery, cardiac arrhythmia, mild explosions, varicose veins, darkened stool, darkened soul, lycanthropy, more vomiting, hemorrhoids, diabetes, loss of virginity, mild discomfort, vampirism, spontaneous dental hydroplosion, sugar high, even more vomiting, total scrotal implosion, and mild rashes. Sign up now. Surrogates do have some sense of feeling, which makes sense, as how would you be able to pick up and use things effectively without some form of feeling? Because obviously, if you pick up a cup, you need to know how much pressure you put on, or if you put too much, you just crush it. So it'd be extremely difficult to do this without, obviously, some ability to feel and kind of regulate how much kind of power, pressure, grip, whatever you want to say, is being used at a time. And we see that in the film, some surrogates are using some kind of electroshock machine to give them some serious feeling, either to get the adrenaline pumping or their own body some kind of high. But it must be strange not to experience pain through the surrogate, obviously. So now when you leave your surrogate's body, maybe it warps your sense of pain. So if you're not careful, you might burn your hand on the stove. And it's going to really mess with people's sense of perceived threats, because obviously once you're in the surrogate, you don't feel any pain. A car hits you, you're not bothered. But in real life, that's going to kill you. And also this goes on to, do the surrogates have a gate of how much they feel? So obviously they have sensation, but is there a cutoff to, like, let's say your surrogate can feel someone else's surrogate touch your face, but if they punch you, does the gate kick in to stop pain being registered? And then if it is a safety protocol, then that could be messed with or break. So what happens if your surrogate's hit by a car and you feel the entire thing? So you're going to wake up fine in your surrogate, but you've just felt being hit by a car. It's going to be pretty unpleasant, but also very odd. It's also some people who like pain might want their surrogate to feel everything. They could literally have their surrogate be tortured and they feel everything, and then obviously they unlink from the surrogate and they're perfectly fine. It's going to lead to some very odd situations, is all I'm saying. There will be a new form of discrimination, the surrogate user against the people who go around in their natural human form, also known as dregs and sometimes referred to as meatbags. Well, these would be your average people, not perfect, looking like surrogates. They would have signs of age, wrinkles, little imperfections, common things, but due to surrogates, how they're seen, I think most people would be used to seeing people in their perfect form, and they would look down on these people. They'd be treated like lepers. The new world would also be pretty dangerous for non-surrogate users, where most people don't worry about their safety. The ones who live in their flesh would have to be extra careful for the new world, because obviously surrogate users are fearless, there's no danger to them, and it would be built around them. People who choose to stay in their natural form would be, in a sense, left behind. Surrogates would massively impact the job market, as labour-intensive and dangerous jobs are now done by logging into a surrogate worker model that can be battered and beaten to perform the task at the minimum cost and expense to the company. Yes, skills would still need to be learned, so you could use the surrogate effectively, but imagine a surrogate worker on an oil rig. No need to have people living on the rig and all the risks that come with it. They now just work from home, and the savings in liability and insurance alone would be massive. But a lot of these dangerous jobs and antisocial jobs that require people normally living away from the mainland or working in hostile conditions would now only pay a fraction of the wage, as the worst elements of the job have been mitigated. On the bright side, it would open up many potential opportunities like Arctic expeditions, and scientific research on the North and South Poles could be carried out far easier. You could also do things like, astronauts jobs or jobs in space through surrogates if the effective kind of security link, and I guess it would run off the internet or satellite. But a lot of things that are very difficult and expensive could be done at a fraction of the cost. That's the main thing, but it would screw up the job market massively. And as someone who basically does a basic labour job, it could really affect us, but it could also potentially open up new streams of revenue in other ways. The world itself would become increasingly designed purely around surrogate use, a bit like how use of digital currency is replacing cash and coins. If it becomes the norm, unfortunately, the world of so-called progress turns forward, and whether on purpose or not, you either join the consensus or you end up at odds with it. I personally wouldn't want to use a surrogate, it seems odd, and I reject it with all my being, but if the rest of the world does, and I'm the last in my town without one, would life even be bearable? Well, I'm not sure, but it did keep me up late last night thinking about it. It's a very odd situation. Everything would change with surrogates. There's so many things to think about. Obviously, I've only covered a small amount in this video. You could go on for hours, days, so obviously chuck in the comments what you think. And obviously, before someone says, oh, you wouldn't even design surrogates in human form, maybe not, but we're working off what the film gives us in this world, so any dumb comments are just going to get thrown out. If you just say, oh, this is a stupid film, I don't like it, don't care, don't be here. It's for people who actually want to discuss surrogates. It's an interesting film. And obviously, respect to Bruce Willis. I know he's struggling at the moment with dementia. It's a shame. I like Bruce Willis. I like the film. I like a lot of his stuff. So, a little bit of love for Bruce out there. Good guy. Seems cool. And yeah, let's see what you guys come up with as well. I'm sure there's another 1,000 points we could make on how surrogates would change our world. This is just a very small amount. Anyway, it's been an interesting one. Love to deep dive in. Go and watch Surrogates if you haven't seen it. It's actually a pretty damn good film. It's one of those really good sci-fi films that flew under the radar, so definitely give it a watch. And as always, thanks for watching, guys, and have a beautiful evening.